the top 1%. We all know, it's common fact these days, the top 1% are stealing our money. We have to put an end to this. They are raping the planet of all of its resources. They are stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. Opposite Robin Hood. They are the antithesis of what Robin Hood did. Exploiting people's poverty for their own personal gain. It's horrible. It's disgusting. This all, of course, is not true. This all, of course, is a good argument for socialism if it were based in fact. It, however, is not. So today I want to give you 3 ways socialism not only doesn't help the poor, but kills the poor. Here's my first point, okay? An argument I've heard for socialism is that instead of incentivizing people just to profiteer, just to capitalize and make as much money as possible, we need to restructure incentives. There's one simple issue with this idea, however. The idea that you can just take human incentives and change them by shifting the culture or society or the government. The fact is, incentives exist because humans have basic needs. We need to eat, therefore farmers make money. We need to move places, therefore car manufacturers and gasoline and oil companies make money. We need energy, therefore energy companies make money. That's not the government saying let's help out the energy companies by inventing electricity so that people use more of electricity. And then no, it's not some scheme by some lobbyist. The fact is, we have basic human needs, and this is what incentivizes the market. And socialism kills the poor by taking the incentive, the basic human natural instinct incentive, to work away from people. And there's no better example of this than Soviet Russia, or the Soviet Union. So if you look at Russia in the 1917, here I got some facts I wrote down from, I think it's the World Economic Forum, based in Geneva. Good website. But in 1917, Russia was the top exporter of grain in the entire world. Okay? So they have plenty of fertile land, plenty of area to grow, top exporter of grain. But in the 20s and 30s, Russia collectivized these economies, their growing of food, their agriculture. They collectivized it. They turned it into a more communist style setup. And what happened, you ask? It seems like it should work, right? If we're so productive on our own, maybe if we come together, work together, we'll be more productive. But no. In fact, the facts say themselves. 5 to 10 million people from the 1920s and 30s died of starvation in Russia. 5 to 10 million people died of starvation. World's top exporter of grain, 5 to 10 million die of starvation because these incentives to work harder were removed. A personal example of this. A couple nights ago, it was snowing like crazy, which is stupid because it's April 16th. But Minnesota doesn't know what it's doing. So it's snowing like crazy. And lately I've been driving Lyft just to make a little extra money to pay off my school. And I was out driving. I'd been driving for about 3 hours. It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm exhausted. I'm driving our Suburban. And you really have to pay a lot of attention in the snow and the blizzard. And I really wanted to turn in. I was like, okay, I've done my thing. I made more money than average tonight because, the snowstorm, whatever. So I should just turn in. I should just go to bed. But then I had another thought that said, no. You're going to make more money tonight than you will the rest of the week if you keep at it because the snowstorm makes fares go up. So instead of going to sleep and going back home, going to sleep sounds really nice, you can make a ton ton more money by just staying out. And so I did. I stayed out till about 1 a.m. and ended up making like $300 in one night. Right? And if I didn't have that incentive, if instead it was more of a socialist, communist, we have drivers, you get a flat fee of $100 a day and everyone gets to use your services, blah, 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 I would have been home sleeping. But since I get paid directly for the service, the value that I provide to the economy, I was out there picking people up in the freaking blizzard in the middle of a snowstorm because I wanted to make that money. Second reason socialism kills the poor is it pits the lower class against the productive class. There is no better example of this, again, in Soviet Russia, or in the Soviet Union, communist Russia. So, Jordan Peterson talks a bit about this. I was just doing some reading. There was a group of people called the Gulag. I think that's how you say it, the Gulag in Russia. And these people were like the upper middle class farmers. Like if you could compare them to America today, they're probably like blue collar business owners, right? So they're people that employ a couple servants, a couple field hands. And when Stalin took over Russia, when the communist ideals of Lenin and Karl Marx took over Russia, these Gulags were seen as blood-sucking, exploitative, evil people because they had more than the rest and because they employed the lower class in order to make a profit. Of course, they paid the lower class people to work for them, but they made more of a profit because it was their farm and their ingenuity and they took the risk. And the problem with socialism is, again, it pits the poor against the rich. That's the only reason you get socialism in the first place. And it freaks me out to see this in America today. You see people like Bernie Sanders talk so much about the top 1%, or the top 1.1% have 50% of the blah, 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 blah. And I'm not going to deny it. There are issues that come with that. It's not perfect. And if we can find the root of that and figure out a way to create opportunity for everyone, that's awesome. But the fact is, just because certain people have more money doesn't mean that it's taking money from the lower class. And socialism says they have more, so therefore they exploit it, therefore I get to take what they have and give it back to me. And that's what they did to the Gulag in Russia. So in communist Russia, when they were becoming the Soviet Union, they took these Gulag, this group of people, upper middle class farmers, put them on trains and shipped them away to Siberia. I know that sounds like a joke. Not a joke. They shipped these people to Siberia because they thought they were evil. And we already talked about what follows. 5 to 10 million people die of starvation. And more died in labor camps and under the regime that formed around Joseph Stalin. So just another way socialism kills the poor. And just before I move on from this point, I want to illustrate another important aspect of this, and that's the 20-80 principle. The idea that 20% of the population is going to produce 80% of the outcome. And this works itself out pretty clearly, especially in free market capitalist societies like the United States of America. It almost becomes more extreme. But that doesn't mean that we're hurting people. That doesn't mean that anyone's being stolen from. It just means that the productive class are out there producing and providing jobs for most of the rest of us. And so if we try to knock the upper class off of their pedestal, our efficiency of our markets, our GDP, could quite easily drop in dramatic and detrimental fashion if we remove these people from their positions of power and wealth. And the last thing that sucks about socialism, why it keeps poor people poor, why it kills the poor, is because it does not allow you the freedom to create a better life for yourself. The beauty of a free market is even if you're born poor, you can move up. You can find the things that are going to make you more money in life, capitalize on those things, and if you make a good strategy and if you stick to a good plan, if you have good discipline, you don't drink too much, you don't smoke too much, you don't have a family, you don't have kids before you're married, you don't get divorced. If you make good decisions with your life, capitalism allows you to move up. And Adam Smith talked about this. He talks, I'm going to read a little bit. By the way, this is a great book, The Wealth of Nations. If you're into economics, you don't have to read this whole thing. It's quite weighty, but it's good to have as a reference, and it makes you look smart. So that's another positive there. But basically, what Adam Smith is saying here, and I'm going to read it in a second, is that what we can do in a free market, since there's competition for work and there's competition for workers, is if you as an employee, as the working class, identify things that you can change about yourself or your situation to make more money, you're free to do those things. And these are those, he lists 5 things. So, the 5 following are principal circumstances which, so far as I have been able to observe, make up for the small pecuniary gain in some employments and counterbalance the great one in others. First, the agreeableness or disagreeableness of the employments themselves. Secondly, the easiness and cheapness or the difficulty and expense of learning them. Thirdly, the consistency or inconsistency of employment in them. Fourthly, the small or great trust which must be reposed in those who exercise them. And fifthly, the probability or improbability in success in them. Now that is pure gold right here. And if you don't know, this book is like the founding principles of capitalism. So this guy is not just throwing at the wall to see what sticks. This is real, reasoned, balanced, thought out opinion. And at this point, probably I might even call it fact. So capitalism allows you to either choose a job that maybe is less fun, but it'll pay more, right? An example of this, when I was working through college, I just finished college, but the 3 summers I was in college, in order to pay it off, I worked in roofing. Now, roofing sucks. It's 90 degrees outside, you're on a tar roof, your hands and arms get all cut up from the tar, and then you go to sleep at night, and it feels like you're just in a bed of fiberglass, and it's just kind of itchy and pokey, and it's really not a fun job. You know, you get sometimes dehydrated, and you're always sweaty and gross, but it pays well. And the fact is, I would work 10-hour days roofing all summer, and I would end up making more than my friends who were working full-time jobs all year round. You know, I had a friend who worked at Target all year round, and he's not nowhere near paying his school off. I just worked summers at a disagreeable job, not very fun, and made it back really quick. Second here, he says, first, the agreeableness. Secondly, the easiness and cheapness or difficulty and expense of learning them. So, if you pick something complicated, in a capitalist society, you can move on. And again, in a socialist society, you're told what you're allowed to do. Thirdly, the consistency or inconsistency of employment. Good example of this is when I was in high school, I would work for my dad. We would do installs. So he owns a heating and air conditioning company. I would have to get up at 5:30 a.m. and we'd go out and install furnaces. Our jobs would start at 7 and we'd work till 11 or 12. And I got paid pretty well for doing this because I was never guaranteed work. And my dad would tell me, he's like, I could guarantee you work at the shop. You could come back and build duros or clean or whatever you want to do. I could guarantee you, 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week, but I would have to pay you less, right? Because if you're willing to take inconsistency, you can make more. Fourthly, the small or great trust must be reposed in those who exercise them. This goes along with all the other ones, education and the agreeableness. Like, are you a solid quality person who can do this? And if the job is flipping burgers at McDonald's, there's such a system. It doesn't require any trust in the person doing it. Anyone can make a burger at McDonald's. A 3-year-old can make a burger at McDonald's. But if it's fighting for a case in court, or if it's building a windmill, that's a different story. There's a lot of trust there. A lot of people's lives are at stake. A lot of hazards and different complications and nuances are so involved in that you have to be trustworthy. And fifthly, the probability or improbability of success. And I think that's the most important one, and that's what socialism doesn't allow. Capitalism allows you to do something that is improbable to succeed, but if successful, could be quite profitable. Look at Elon Musk. He's a great example of this. I just last year read autobiography, or not? No, it wasn't an autobiography. It was just a bio on Elon Musk, and you look at what he does, and if you were looking at his life memento style, it wouldn't make any sense. So, like, he makes all this money doing PayPal, right? He helped create PayPal. He sells it. He's a billionaire. I think he bought like a McLaren or something. And but with most of his money, he just rolls it into his next project, which was SpaceX. And then SpaceX becomes a little bit profitable, and he takes his profit and rolls it into Tesla, electric cars, which is also dangerous as far as in economy. There's no proven success until he started Tesla. So basically, he's doing all these things that have very low probability of success, but if successful, are highly profitable, and that's why he's made so much money. I think there's plenty of other people out there like Elon Musk who aren't making it, and we don't talk about them. They're the idiots who took too big a risk. Elon Musk is the guy we all praise because his risks worked out. And that's not to say he's not a brilliant guy. I respect the crap out of him. But since he took those risks, he was able to return huge gains. So those are the three ways capitalism kills, or socialism kills poor people. It decentralizes production. It removes the most efficient members of the society, the ones who keep everyone else afloat. And it keeps you in the class you're in with no option for advancing, no ability to acquire the necessary skills or position or connections to move up in the world. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Stay classy, stay cool.